Hi, this is James Gordon October here with a graphic novel review. Today's graphic novel we'll be talking about today, Johnny the Homicidal Maniac by Jhonen Vasquez. This was originally published in a comic form from Slave Labor Graphics from August 1995 to January 1997, then reprinted as a director's cut in 1997. This is a graphic novel that I've been wanting to check out for a very long time, and I was so glad to finally get my hands on a copy. A week ago, I was browsing through the Facebook Market page, and I saw this pop up in the Market page for $20. I'm like, I am not passing this up, so I immediately contacted the person and went and got it, and I was so happy to have this, as this is a graphic novel. Well, actually, this was actually a comic series I remember hearing about back in high school. I remember back in the early 2000s, there was that Nickelodeon show Invader Zim, which is a really good show. Something I enjoyed watching when I was a kid. And during high school, I was telling my friends about how much I liked Invader Zim, and then they were telling me about this comic series that Jhonen Vasquez created back in the mid '90s, which was very like shocking, violent, graphic, and edgy, and they're saying how cool it was. And told me about Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. I thought, ooh, that sounds interesting. However, back then I could not find a copy of this graphic novel or the comic series, as it was not easy to get back at the time. So after finding all these years, I finally got my hands on it, and I'm so glad to have a copy of this, as this is a really dark, edgy, violent graphic novel. Like, this is one of the most violent things I've ever read, and there was like moments that I was just really enjoying, and there's some dark humor in it as well. But the Jhonen Vasquez also touches on many subjects within the graphic novel, such as loneliness, depression, suicidal thoughts, and a whole bunch of other issues that the main character Johnny suffers, along with other characters that the graphic novel follows. But overall, I really enjoyed this. I really had a lot of fun reading it. I really liked the art style of Jhonen Vasquez. I really liked his like gothic, edgy illustrations in this graphic novel. I really enjoyed it, and I definitely want to check out more graphic novels by Jhonen Vasquez. And I would love to get my hands on the comics of Invader Zim. Um, I would just love to check out all the work this guy's done. One thing I should note before I begin my review, this is not for the faint-hearted, and this is really graphic as hell. Like, it is very like edgy and very just very gory at times. So if you cannot stand a high amounts of gore and violence, then I would not recommend this. But if you're into that thing, I highly recommend Johnny Homicidal Maniac. All right, onto the review. Plot: moving into a new house, Todd Castle, or known as Squee for making noises when frightened, is a young yet troubled boy. His mother is bedridden and a drug addict, and his father spends all his time in the basement working away on his computer. Neither one cares for him. While his father taking his frustration out on him, Squee's only friend is a stuffed teddy bear, Sheem. Uneasy about being in a new home and neither his parents will care for him, Squee returns to his room only to find his bedroom window broken. He hears noises in the bathroom. Upon opening the door, he meets his psychopathic neighbor, Johnny C., or he likes to be called Nee. He is also a loner, and it is hinted he murdered his parents. Now living in a rundown house, he's going through the medicine cabinet trying to find bacteria after one of his victims scratched his head like a cat on crack. After introducing himself, Johnny asks who is Squee's friend and gives Johnny his stuffed bear, which Johnny snaps at it, then pulls out a knife, stabbing it a few times before giving it back to Squee. He tells him not to bother locking the windows and returns back home, leaving Squee in bed scared. The next day, a person from the city council is doing a survey on the sudden violent crime rate that has increased. After speaking with a large, overweight woman, he goes next door to a rough house with the windows boarded up. Upon pressing the doorbell, he hears a terrible scream, unaware a person has been tied up and attached to electrical cords to scream when the bell rings. Johnny answers the door with the surveyman commenting on his house address 777, asking if it's heaven. Johnny opens the door further, revealing his rough home with a noose hanging from the ceiling, dolls and dead animals nailed to the wall. Johnny asks if it looks like heaven. The servant man becomes uneasy and asks Johnny about the sudden crime rate. He grabs him and pulls him inside. Johnny asks if the dog sent him, believing he's been exposed as a serial killer. The servant man replies no and tries to leave, but Johnny has him sit while he's in the middle of working on his comic series Happy Noodle Boy. The servant man asks him what he thinks about violent crimes, with Johnny giving him his dark, twisted views and philosophy of murder and stating that movies and books don't inspire murder, they're just entertainment. The servant man then asks about a recent murder which causes Johnny to snap and pull out 2 machetes, claiming he didn't kill her but needed her blood. He points over to a wall, stating he has to keep it wet. Johnny slices off the servant man's limbs and sends him through the boarded up window, landing on the sidewalk, scaring Squee while riding his tricycle. Johnny peers out of the darkness, asking the dead survey man for another question. Later on that day, Johnny goes to eat at a taco restaurant. A woman passes by and remarks about Johnny's outfit, stating she would die if she caught her son wearing wacky clothing. This annoys Johnny, asking her what the hell does wacky mean. Then everyone else all say that Johnny looks wacky, angering him, causing him to kill everyone in the restaurant, including the cockroaches in the kitchen. Johnny grins while watching the news about the murder, with the news anchor adding one cop found Johnny eating a taco while covered in blood and killed the cop with a plastic fork and knife, as the other cop was unable to stop him. He later kidnaps several people and murders them in the house while writing in his diary, and uses a dead dog as a pillow. That night, Johnny is contemplating suicide as he's suffering from insomnia, grabbing his Happy Noodle Boy figure and smashes the case with a pistol. He's about to kill himself when he hears the dead rabbit he bought at a pet store before nailing it to the wall, trying to reason with him. The Doughboy's 2 carved foam figures, Psycho Doughboy and Mr. Effie, tries to convince Johnny to go through with it. The 2 argue with Johnny about to shoot himself when a floating animal fetus inside a jar tells Johnny the commercial with the family getting diarrhea is on. Johnny grabs a box of chips and laughs while watching TV. Johnny then kidnaps a man named Invader Vargas and has him strapped to a torture device that will tear him apart and stab him with sharp blades and spikes. Johnny asks Ager why are people so unpleasant, along with questioning reality. Ager tries reasoning with Johnny, stating he too is a loner with no friends, and asks if he's suffering, why hasn't he killed himself yet. Johnny explains he has tried but believes that he can't die, that some supernatural force won't allow him to escape this reality. But Johnny becomes annoyed. Ager isn't scared and is begging for his life. Johnny explains he needs his blood, which the device will send through a drain to feed the monster who hungers for it. Ager then snaps at Johnny, stating when he dies he'll go to heaven, and when Johnny's time comes he's going to hell, as he doesn't fear death. Johnny replies, "I envy you," then kills Ager. Johnny then kidnaps several people, chaining them up and placing others in uncomfortable positions. They beg, cry, scream, yell, taunt and confess and swear until Johnny can't stand them anymore, killing everyone, then dismembering them in the bathtub, asking himself why doesn't he get earplugs to block out the noise. Later that day, Johnny kidnaps a woman who's laughed at him along with her friends for how he looked. Johnny has her in a straitjacket as she tries begging for her life. Johnny hates how she's beautiful on the outside but ugly on the inside. Taking a scythe as he rams it through her mouth and pins her to the wall, then begins writing his diary. Johnny goes out with a date with a girl he met at a bookstore, Diva D. The 2 went to a concert, a movie, then sitting on the hood of the car looking over the city during a full moon. Diva wants to go to Johnny's place. He agrees as the 2 sit on the couch. Johnny asks Diva why she wanted to go out with him. She explains that she finds Johnny interesting and jokes about how his silent stare makes her want to kill Johnny. The 2 laugh and almost kiss, with Johnny suddenly gets up and goes to his room. The Doughboys are mocking him for feeling happy. Johnny tries to silence them when Diva enters his room. Johnny panics and draws out his knives and goes to kill her. Diva is able to fight back and smashes Johnny against the mirror, then his desk before fleeing. Johnny is humiliated that a victim has gotten away from him and is badly wounded. Johnny then visits a 24/7 convenience store to get something to eat. Picking up a bag of Senna salsa chips, he then sees a brain freezy with 3 flavors: frosty peanut, cherry doom, and icy ham. As Johnny goes to pour himself cherry doom, the machine doesn't give him his brain freezy. He tells the man behind the front desk and replies they shut the machine off after 2 a.m. Upset, Johnny decides to kill himself after he murders the convenience store owner. Jumping on the front desk, Johnny reaches under it and takes a pistol, arming it. The man begs Johnny to spare him and turns the brain freezing machine on it, so it'll only take a few minutes, and even a security camera is recording him. However, Johnny replies it's too late and shoots the man in the head, blowing his brains out before turning the gun on himself, but nothing happens. Outraged, it only had one bullet, wishing he used it on himself. Johnny then spots Cherry Doom soda and takes it along with some snacks before tossing the dead convenience store owner his money. The doughboy, Mr. Effie, asks Johnny why he isn't happy and replies he is in the mood to smile. Mr. Effie tells Johnny to go into the city and be happy. Wearing headphones, listening to music, Johnny passes by guys sitting at a cafe when one of them asks if he's got a smoke, which Johnny replies he doesn't smoke, but as he walks away, he overhears one of the men thinking he's a pussy for not smoking. This angers Johnny as he turns around and stares at the men intensely, telling them he was going to pass by and visit the dance club, but he'll go there tomorrow, and enters the cafe. Johnny gets everyone's attention before massacring the place with knives, a hammer, and even ripping people apart, along with tossing a hand grenade into the bathroom stall, blowing a man up, then finishes off the remaining survivors with a backpack loaded with a bomb, blowing the whole cafe up as he runs away feeling happy. Squee is at the mall and is lost as his parents abandoned him. A creepy man approaches him and offers to find Squee's mom, but leads him towards the fire exit. The man places Squee on a box and wants him to close his eyes. Squee reveals his name, which the man gets angry, about to harm him, but is saved by Johnny after whacking a steel pole into the creepy man's head. Johnny tries to help Squee not to feel bad about himself and to defend himself from monsters. He then slices off the man's hand before ripping the man's head open, tearing out his brain and throwing it against a brick wall, causing it to explode, all the while Squee watches in horror before running back home. Johnny begins questioning his reality and wanting to know what this supernatural force is that is compelling him to murder, with his dead pet rabbit, now a floating head, is aiding him. He also begins helping out Squee, becoming a sort of big brother for him, along with getting back at Squee's being father and against the Doughboys. But is struggling with his depression and loneliness that is pushing him closer to suicide. Will Johnny be able to uncover these supernatural beings who are controlling his life and defeat them, or is this something beyond his imagination? Johnny the Homicidal Maniac was one of the most brutal, over-the-top violent, yet darkly humored graphic novels I've ever read. Really like the illustrations by Jhonen Vasquez, a very dark yet gothic style that reminds me of Tim Burton's A Nightmare Before Christmas and has that mid-90s vibe to it as well. I like the blend of horror mixed with supernatural, which was almost like Lovecraftian at times. The scenery was creative backgrounds and hidden jokes or Easter eggs within the pages. I also like the themes Vasquez touches upon, such as loneliness, depression, abuse, abandonment, bullying, misanthropy, flaws with society, along with mental issues of suffering from insomnia and other mental illnesses. There is never one dull moment in this graphic novel, as Vasquez doesn't hold anything back when Johnny murders anyone who angers him or he feels like doing it. Love the brutal violence with lots of gore and dark humor in the mix, with a few parts that I laughed at. Some of the massacre scenes were the best, just watching Johnny cause mayhem and destruction to anyone in his path. Johnny, or as he likes to be called, Nee, is a crazed, psychopathic killer with a dark, twisted view on the world and everything he hates. However, there is a caring side to him as he helps out Squee, despite scaring the poor kid to death. He even shows an affection for a girl he loves. However, he can't control his lust for violence, leaving him to be a lonely and bitter man. Squee was another interesting character. He was very nervous of his world and is treated badly by his awful parents, with Johnny becoming a sort of big brother to him. I kind of wish there could have been a scene of Johnny taking Squee out to have a good time, as I felt bad for how Squee was being treated by his shitty parents. Was glad to see Johnny get back at Squee's awful father. The rest of the cast were either okay or didn't care for them. While towards the end it got a bit strange and not explaining much, as I felt the hell setting could have been done differently, but despite these issues I still enjoy this graphic novel. Overall, I highly recommend Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. If you like extreme levels of violence, gore, and dark humor with a mid-90s setting, then check out this graphic novel. But be warned, it isn't for the faint-hearted, as it holds nothing back on the themes or subject matter. If you want something that's dark, edgy, and has more violence than American Psycho, then check out John the Homicidal Maniac. It's a razor-sharp joyride. Alright, that's for the review today. Hope you enjoyed it, and I had a lot of fun reading John the Homicidal Maniac. As I said, I've been curious about this comic series for years after hearing from my friends saying how dark, edgy it is, and how violent it is, as well as all I knew about Jhonen Vasquez was his cartoon show Invader Zim. So, and I've been never trying to search this comic series for years. However, it was not available in like bookstores and stuff. So it wouldn't be till a few years later I finally got my hands on the director's cut on the market page on Facebook, and I'm so glad I got that for like $20. That's a great deal. As you can get the director's cut for like a reasonable price, the paperback. However, the hardcover edition goes for more money, which is a lot. And trying to get the original comic series is very pricey. So if it's in like a graphic novel format, then I'd rather get that because that makes it much easier for collecting. As collecting like a lot of single comics, you have to find the space for it, and collecting each issue is a lot of work. Sometimes some issues are more expensive than others, but I'm just glad I finally have my hands on the graphic novel. So this follows the daily life of Johnny as he lives in this very rough house. As most of the time it's just him killing people, and other times it follows his struggles with his insomnia and suicidal thoughts, and his constant battle with the two entities, the doughboys, that are trying to push him towards more violence and ending his life. Then he's got his dead pet rabbit that is trying to help him. And he's also trying to help out Squee, his ex-door neighbor, trying to become sort of like a big brother figure later on in the graphic novel. So this has a really interesting story, and while Johnny is crazy and just absolutely, like, vicious, he shows a caring side to him. Like, he tries to help out Squee against his asshole father, who is just this miserable prick that works in the basement. He's like, oh, I never smiled the day you were born, this and that. I thought to myself, if you're not happy, then why did you get married in the first place, you asshole? That's just my thought. And then his mother is bedridden. She's like a drug addict. She doesn't go anywhere. So Squeeze just got terrible parents. And Johnny kind of steps in to kind of sort of be the big brother figure to help him out a bit. And I kind of wish that there could have been a scene where Squeeze lonely and is upset, so when Johnny hears him crying, Johnny decides, let's go out and to like a amusement park and have fun together. I wish it had that. That would have been nice to have a scene where it shows Johnny spending time with Squee and having fun together. That would have been nice to feature that in it. And then later on in the graphic novel, Johnny meets a girl, Diva D, who he is interested in. However, despite showing affection for this girl, he's unable to control the violence inside of him as the two doughboys pressure him into trying to kill her. This leads to Dee Dee defending herself, and is the only known victim to get away from Johnny, which both upsets and humiliates him. And even after this event, Johnny tries to make amends with Dee, but it doesn't really work out that well. So, despite Johnny's homicidal tendencies, he does have a caring side to him. And then some of the other characters we come to follow. Squee, he pops up here and there in the graphic novel. He was an interesting character. And then there were a couple others that pop up, which either I didn't care for or okay, but the graphic novel has an interesting cast of characters. I also like the illustrations by Jhonen Vasquez. It has that like really dark gothic vibe to it, kind of like Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas. And it has some really good scenery in it as well. So I'll show some of the illustrations. This is like the opening part of part 1. And this is when Squee meets Johnny for the very first time. But it has some really good illustrations that I really like. It's got some really good dark humor in it. Oh yeah, here's the part where the Ager is strapped to that torture device, and then there's his pet rabbit that's nailed to the wall. Let's see. Like, I really love the illustrations. Like, they're absolutely amazing. Oh, and then this is the one where Johnny goes out on a date with Diva. I really like that. And then I really like the part where he goes to the convenience store to get a smoothie, and there's like all sorts of like hidden jokes and hidden jokes and Easter eggs in it. And then they get like the three flavors. I'm really curious what Cherry Doom tastes like. And which part was it? Has a a little nod to Aliens. Its register reads LV426. Oh wait, one more scene that I'll show. This is actually one of my favorite moments in the graphic novel. Is when Johnny massacres, like, goes into a cafe and just massacres the whole place. Like, this is just like fucking over the top, violent as hell. And then, one part of the massacre, some guy is in the bathroom and he blows the person out with a hand grenade, and then he blows the whole cafe out with a bomb. Like, this shit is wild. I was just enjoying every moment of this massacre. It was just a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And then there's several other scenes where it's just so over the top violent, and I was having fun. And then of course the dark humor that's mixed in within these scenes. I really enjoyed it. While I enjoyed this graphic novel, there were some things I didn't like with it. There's a part where Johnny visits both heaven and hell, and it's not really what I expected it to be. And I found myself the hell setting could have been done different, as it's kind of like it's like the same city that Johnny's from. Like, there's no difference to it. I was expecting like a more hellish landscape and stuff, and it was just not what I expected it. And also towards the end, it starts to reveal more of the supernatural entities that are controlling Johnny, as this is very Lovecraftian themed. While it reveals this scene, it doesn't really explain that much. I was hoping it would have like an explanation of like where these things came from and why they picked Johnny to do their bidding. But overall, I still enjoyed this graphic novel, and I definitely want to check out the other graphic novels by Jhonen Vasquez. Squee, I Feel Sick, and then he's got a comic series of Invader Zim that I was reading last night that continues after where season 2 left off, as the show was unfortunately canceled. And I saw some like graphic novel, like some hardcover editions and stuff that have like all the issues together. So I'm gonna try to track down a copy so I can definitely review that on the channel. All right, that's for the review today. Hope you enjoy it. And sorry this took longer than expected. I originally got the Homicidal Maniac graphic novel done sooner, but I got a cold and I was sick for a few days, so it prevented me from doing anything. And then I decided when I was feeling a bit better, to do another graphic novel review on the same day. However, I am not liking that graphic novel, so I'm only doing the one review today. But I am feeling much better, so I'm gonna. I got some books I'm gonna be reading. I got some manga I picked out. I'm gonna be reviewing on the channel, and I'm definitely gonna get started on some nonfiction. And I'm planning to do a book series on the channel as well. Alright, that's for the review today. I hope you enjoyed. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to October Library, the YouTube channel where I post book reviews, book hauls, and official content. Until then, I'll catch you later.